And welcome back to Beerfield Fantasy Football, where the beer is ice cold and the co-hosts are too. I am your host at Hot BFF with 2 P's. As always, joined by at 30 BFF with 2 F's from Springfield, Illinois. Dan, I had a thought today, which is scary, but I think, and maybe I'm an idiot for
Oh,
this.
you did? Oh, okay.
Maybe I'm an idiot for this, but I just realized that bologna is basically a flat hot dog.
You know, I never really thought about it because it's one of those situations where I don't really want to know what it is and just let my ignorance enjoy this tasty meat. If you can call it meat, I guess. Meat dish, I guess.
Anyway, welcome to the show. We are Beerfield Fantasy Football. As I said in the intro, we're here to talk the AFC East. But before we do that, gotta throw some love out to some of our people. We don't do a fantasy football draft guide because, quite honestly, it's a lot of work. And Dan and I are kind of effort averse. We sit down and talk, and that's about the extent of what we do. But our buddies over at the Fantasy Headliners are not. They put out for pre-order their 2020 draft guide. We had Jake and Kyle on a couple weeks ago. Another one of their guys here this week that I'll introduce in just a second. But if you want the best information that's available in your back pocket, you need to get your hands on this draft guide. They go over pretty much everything imaginable, from coordinator changes to coaching changes, depth charts, you name it. That information is in there, and you can pre-order that for the low price of $19.99. TheFantasyHeadliners.com. Use promo code BEER. Get entered to win a DJ Moore jersey. And speaking of the Fantasy Headliners, we are joined by Chris Kennedy this week to talk the AFC East. Chris, tell the people where they can find you and, what you do, what you work on. Pimp yourself out. Promote yourself.
Pimp yourself out.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I am Chris Kennedy. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Kennedy 318. I am doing a little bit of everything with the Fantasy Headliners. Right now, with golf now being back into the fold with sports, I do some DFS write-ups for PGA, for DraftKings with them. When football gets back into it, I'll be doing DFS NFL as well. I also had a good part in helping out with the draft guide this year, helping out with the player profiles. We have over 300 player profiles that myself and a couple of the other guys were able to write together. And I mean, like you said before, with this draft guide, it's just jam-packed with content. And as far as the DFS stuff that I do, that's all on our Patreon. So if you go to thefantasyheadliners.com, click on the Patreon link. We have a few different tiers that you can subscribe to. But for $20 a month, you can be a part of our MVP package, which gets you all of the other lower tier content, but it also gives you a free draft guide along with all of my DFS content, including, articles, podcasts that Jake, Kyle, another guy that we work with, Chris, as well. The four of us kind of put together on a bi-weekly basis. So we're doing a lot of really fun things over at the Fantasy Headliners. We always are looking to continue to grow. And I want to give a big shout out to Headliner Nation. In my opinion, the best fantasy football community and family out there in the world. So big shout out to Headliner Nation.
Yep. And again, shout out to those guys. Patreon, heck of a deal, because $20 is the price of the draft guide. And if there's DFS information you can get there, you're going to make that back easily. Basically like free content. Go do it. All right. As always, before we get into anything, we got to go over what we're drinking. So let's go ahead and hit a beer preview.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, what are you suckling on?
Suckling on. I am drinking Samuel Adams Porch Rocker.
What?
This is it. Yeah, Porch Rocker.
Attaboy.
From Samuel Adams. Oh,
the Sam Adams.
I could have gotten really
great choice.
The Sam Adams just
real quick.
Surprised me, but then I remembered that you do beers from the division. Well, we like Sam Adams, don't get me wrong. It's just a little more widely available than some of the stuff we put on. So good call on that. I don't ever drink anything bad from Sam Adams.
I am I'm a little lukewarm in some of their stuff, but again, as Chris just mentioned, I want to follow along with at least the area of where I'm drinking our beers from, and this, with us doing the AFC East. Our guest being a Patriots fan, I just kind of fit in perfectly. So Porch Rocker, they basically took their Hellas style lager and just kind of zested up. Lime, lemon. So I'll give you guys my thoughts on this a little bit later.
All right. Chris, you drinking anything? If not, no big deal.
I am, and actually, I am following suit with Sam Adams as well. I've got a koozie for what I'm drinking now, so I'm going to show you one that's not opened yet. But I'm going to go with a little Sam's Summer Ale today,
Nice.
Which is easily one of my favorite Sam Adams beers, right next to Oktoberfest. A couple of beers that I could drink all year long if they were actually available all year long. But the Porch Rocker is actually phenomenal. It's a very refreshing beer, great on a warm day. Can't go wrong with any of them.
Absolutely. Can't go wrong really with anything from Sam Adams, despite what Dan says. So double barreling Sam Adams. I am not drinking Sam Adams. So funny story. I can't remember if I've had this beer on before or not. It's been talked about on the air someplace. I don't remember if I featured it. I don't remember if it was just a secondary beer we had on during a marathon episode. I don't remember if I just mentioned it in passing during something we did somewhere along the line, but I'm doing it again if I've had it on before. So Old Bakery Beers Blueberry Cream Ale brewed with blueberries. Proceeds go to help support Vivint Health, celebrating individuals and families and all love, which is relevant to the time of year that we are in, and in support of the Supreme Court's recent ruling. Not that we're Beerfield Fantasy Politics now, but felt like it was a fitting beer to have on because of what it supports. So
exactly. And since Nick has left the show, we don't really keep track of what we drink. Nick used to do so much of the behind the scenes. Like, some days I miss that.
That's why I'm not even mad. He got a Scott Fish spot. Is on analyst for the show when he hasn't been on the show in over a year. Yet I am going to be out of it this year.
I asked him on last week, and I'm like, "Did you sign up for Scott Fish?" He goes, "Yep." Like, "Did you just sign up under Beerfield?" He goes, "Yep." I'm like, "All right, I'll allow it."
Yeah, I wouldn't complain about it, but I'm a little bitter because I don't think I'm gonna get in with under 100 invites left, and he is, and hasn't been an analyst for us in year plus,
2 years.
Year
plus.
Last year, it was last year at the end of draft, so a little over a year. But congratulations, Nick. Congratulations, Dan. I'll watch you all from the sidelines like a kid that's grounded watching all of my friends play outside. Let's go ahead and get into the news.
Aww.
News.
I feel like we should make him do something as payoff for that. Like, he should have to write show scripts for a month or something along those lines, or fill out the news.
I keep telling him he needs to run our social media.
Come back and deal with us for a couple weeks. Something along those lines. All right.
We'll just have him on next week.
Sure.
Whatever.
Does that mean we're doing the NFC North next week? Hold on. Production meeting. This happens a lot.
I mean, his second favorite team, just like yours, is the
Jaguars.
So
got it.
fitting.
I was going to say, I didn't think we'd jump to NFC that quick. Anyway, news. I'm on a tangent here. Zeke Elliott tested. You need to quit moving your pink cursor around on the Google Doc. It's distracting me. Zeke Elliott tested positive for COVID-19, although he is asymptomatic. Does this move the needle at all on him for anybody? I saw one tweet that was interesting from Miguel, I believe, that said he's one of the safest draft picks now because he's already had it. But we haven't really talked about the COVID impact on the NFL season, if it does happen, or how that may affect, certain players missing time or things of that nature.
I think there's so for Zeke, no, it doesn't move the needle at all for me.
What are you going to do? Move
with
him
how
up
COVID's
from
going to
2?
probably. What's that?
So what are you going to do? Move him up? I mean, no.
Yeah, he's not going to. He's not moving up or down. He's staying firmly at 3 for me. At least among running backs. It's just we expected COVID to be, I won't say a mainstay, but it's going to affect the league at some point. It's just we don't know how the teams are going to handle it. Like, we don't even know within these fantasy leagues. Like, I've seen mentions like, how are we going to handle IR spots when half your roster gets COVID and they're out for 2 weeks? Like, it's something that we just have to kind of keep in the back of our heads, but also we can't let it affect it too much because we don't have any past information with how to handle something like this.
You also don't have a crystal ball that says these guys are going to get it.
Exactly.
Every player has the same chance. Chris, thoughts on Zeke?
Yeah, I'm not moving him right now in my rankings. I currently also have him at number 3, behind CMC and Saquon Barkley. We're just so far out from the beginning of the season that I don't think there's any concern, especially with COVID. If somebody does have it, usually lasts 10 to 14 days. So it's not something that I'm personally concerned about.
Well, Andy's asymptomatic, so I'm not either.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was a good segue into the larger conversation, though. All right. Per Eagles coach Doug Marrone and Alshon Jeffries without a timetable for return after dealing with the Liz Frank injury. If that happens,
I forgot he had a Liz Frank injury.
Yeah, he may miss time at the beginning of the year, and that's going to be interesting-ish. They brought in Marquise Goodwin. You've got Deshaun Jackson coming back off of core surgery. They're both kind of the same type of player. So that Eagles
Jalen Reagor season.
Yeah, rookie without.
I know you don't like him that much.
No, I like him. It's just rookie that was raw without a lot of without mini camp or anything. I don't think he's going to hit the ground running in that early part of the season. I was thinking more Dallas Goedert season. Definitely a lot of 12 personnel in that scenario.
I just expected a lot of 12 personnel. I think without Alshon, unless they're going to put, JJ Arcega-Whiteside out there week 1 alongside D-Jack, maybe you see just a more rotation of these receivers. It's maybe it's a slight bump down to the Wentz not to have his bigger outside receiver, or we're going to see more concentrated targets towards the tight ends, and then maybe even Miles Sanders.
Well, Arcega-Whiteside was one of my favorite buy lows coming into the season. Like I like to say, I moved back 4 spots in the second round and was able to get him. And if Jeffrey misses time, I think that he probably is a favorite to step up and take some of those targets and take some of those snaps. And you played hurt last year, like most of the Eagles receiving core did. So if he's healthy, who knows what you're going to get out of him with that little bit of opportunity, but it could be a lot better than what we saw last year. Chris, any thoughts on Jeffrey?
Yeah, if he does miss time, even when he does get back, who knows what kind of player we're really going to see, because as we've seen in years past, he's had a history of trying to overcome injuries. And where the Eagles last season alone, they were head and shoulders above the rest of the league when it came to running 12 personnel. They ran it at about 52% of the time. And the next closest team were the Vikings at 34%. So I'm right there as far as Dallas Goedert. I think you're going to see the Eagles potentially be able to produce, 2 top 10 fantasy tight ends.
Agreed with that, and that may have happened even if Jeffrey was healthy. He's not exactly been a superstar the last couple of years.
Right.
49ers and Kyle Shanahan to a 3-year extension through 2025. Biggest thing there is that you're going to have hopefully some stability with the coaching staff. I believe it's actually a 6-year deal, but he had 3 remaining on his current contract that replaces. And then Patriots running back Sonny Michel is apparently recovering from foot surgery to, quote, relieve discomfort. So another maintenance procedure and another offseason for Sonny Michel.
Yay, the Patriots team.
It's a good segue. Hold off on that. On that because we're talking about we're talking about the Patriots in approximately 15 seconds.
Division preview.
All right, AFC East this week. So kicking right into probably the hardest team to project and figure out, the New England Patriots. Jarrett Stidham, Brian Hoyer, or neither, and you kind of have to have an answer to this question before you can really analyze the rest of anything. So, Chris, being the guest and the Patriots fan, we'll start with you. Do you think it's Stidham? Do you think it's Hoyer? Do you still think they make or do they make a run at somebody that's still out there?
I think if they were going to make a run at somebody, they would have done it by now, to be honest with you, unless Stidham or Hoyer gets injured within the next few months. I do see them going with Jarrett Stidham. He's been working out with Julian Edelman, trying to build up that rapport with his number one wide receiver. And I know there's a very, very, very small sample size of what we've seen from him, and that was just in the preseason last year. He didn't perform that terribly. 67% completions, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 101 passer rating. His biggest opportunities were just throwing the deep ball and making sure that he's making smart decisions while under pressure. He only completed 40% of his passes while he was under pressure, compared to almost 80% when he had a clean pocket. So again, it's preseason. You're not seeing, the starters, even the second string maybe. But from what I've heard from his current teammates and former teammates in college, is that he has great poise. He's a leader. He's someone that can really control the huddle. And I think the Patriots want to see what they have in this kid. Going into 2021, going into that draft, they very well could be looking at a higher draft pick and maybe trying to trade up to grab one of those top guys like a Fields or a Trevor Lawrence. But I think this year you're going to see Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, that's always what we say when a younger quarterback's on the roster too, is you need to see what you have in him. And I think that's true for Stidham. And you make a good point about pressured completion percentage. If there's one team that schemes to get the ball out of your hand quick, it's the Patriots. And they've been doing that with Brady for years, getting the ball out quick on short to intermediate routes, especially over the last several years, which is why there's the whole can he or can't he still unleash the deep ball, how's it's going to work out in Tampa Bay, is because of how that offense is schemed to use him in the last couple of years. And I think that's going to protect Stidham a lot in the way that New England has utilized the quarterback over the last couple of years. Dan, thoughts on this?
I don't want either for
you don't want to draft either, no.
Dynasty. I don't want him in single. I don't want him in super flex or 2GB. I think Stidham starts. I think where it gets murky is if he struggles, how long do they keep off from? How long does it take until they move on to Brian Hoyer? We've famously, or I guess infamously, have gone on massive Brian Hoyer rants on this show before.
I tried to dig that up so I could rehash it, by the way. I tried to dig up
episode 5.
Yeah, I tried to dig up the notes for that episode so I could rehash it, and I deleted them during a mass Google Drive purge, I think, last year. So, unfortunately,
a good idea.
Can't go 40 minutes on Brian Hoyer this go around.
No, I don't want to go more than 40 seconds on this entire quarterback core. But it is important to kind of figure out who it is, so we can kind of help project what the receivers are going to do in this offense. I hope Stidham does start. That way, maybe we can see more of a payoff on a guy like Julian Edelman with him working with him in the offseason so far. But when it comes to them, I don't want it. None of it. None of it at all.
Well, it's a good trend. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm done.
Okay. It's a good transition point to the running backs, because I think that being able to establish the run, playing defense, and then using Stidham intelligently is going to be how this team stays competitive. And they do have good running backs. Sony Michel, not quite what everybody thought he was going to be last year, coming off the good rookie season, coming off of another injury. Definitely talented. James White seems to be underappreciated, especially in PPR year in, year out, and is a guy that can give you some fantasy value, and that I think really that is going to help Stidham as far as getting the ball out quickly, keeping him from being under pressure and running that offense. And then Damien Harris, who spent most of last year injured and was a high-round draft pick that has a ton of talent there. I think you're going to see this team lean on the running game a little bit more, even than they have the last couple of years, in order to try to protect that young quarterback in Stidham or the veteran game manager in Hoyer.
You can jump in, Chris.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, especially if you're in a half or full PPR format, I mean, if I were to take anybody from this Patriots running back core, it's going to be James White. He's got a really nice ADP right now, and I'd even consider taking Sexy Rexy, over Damien Harris right now, just because we don't. Even though Damien Harris is very similar, he has a similar running style to Sony Michel. But again, Burkhead knows the system. He's kind of being that proven back, especially in the passing game. But as far as James White is concerned, I was looking around to see just how unappreciated he has been. And since 2016, only Christian McCaffrey has more targets and receptions than James White. And James White has played about 13 more games than CMC has. So I mean, that just shows you how much James White is useful or is used in the passing game itself. And if they do decide to go with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback, I mean, what better of a safety blanket than a little check down James White action all day?
Right. And the way that Dan had this written out, it was who are you targeting? Sony Michel's ADP, all ADPs provided by FF Calc, by the way. 703 running back 32, James White 807 the 39, Damien Harris essentially free at the 1308 running back 54. Don't have Burkhead there, but quite honestly,
he's free.
He's free. Yeah, essentially.
Quite
honestly, James White is probably the safest out of them to own, I would think, because I don't see them going away from or him really shedding target volume or anything. I think his role is pretty well insulated. Sony Michel, I think, is fair, but quite honestly, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm going to take the dart throw on Damien Harris, the third-round pick who spent most of last year injured. We haven't really seen what they have in Damien Harris, and I think that there's going to be some opportunity there for him this year to flash or really carve out a role. And I'll bet on the talent late on a guy that hasn't, is the second year in the league and hasn't really gotten to showcase what he can do yet over the veteran and Burkhead. Not saying that Burkhead isn't viable. We've seen him be productive. He's essentially free. You could make the same argument for him carving out a more of a niche than he has the last couple of years there. But just personal preference, I'm going to land on Damien Harris.
So for me, it's so how I've been constructing my teams this year for redraft, or either be best ball or just do mocks, or just kind of how I want to approach my roster construction for 2020. Not only backs, I'm going to target. They're just not enough upside. I'll have my RBs 1 through 3 by this point, which means I don't have to go more for floor. If you're going to go Sony Michel, you're following the expected touch share. He should lead all backs in this offense in touches if he remains healthy. Obviously, he could lose his job at some point, or they could reduce his role if they want to put, bring in more Damien Harris, but we don't know that. This is all speculation. No Tom Brady. We don't know how this offense is going to operate with a new quarterback under helm, which makes me slightly a bit nervous for James White. You would think he would have more of that insulated role as a pass catcher, but I'm not quite sure how much Stidham or Hoyer is going to check down. They're going to try to just, force it to its wide receivers, the 2 tight ends that they drafted this year, who I'm obviously not going to draft. But this backfield is completely disgusting. And I wouldn't be surprised if they just get dropped at some point, in the season as this team. I don't think the Patriots are going to score a lot of points. So you're not chasing touchdown upside like you were last year or 2 years ago. If you got to take a shot, I'm taking it on James White just because of that potential target volume that he could get. But I'm avoiding this backfield as a whole until we get some sort of answer, probably, partway through the season, given injuries and stuff that could happen.
Yeah, Damien Harris, Rex Burkhead being free, I think the end of your draft in a churn roster spot, sure, if you want to, there's no harm in that. But I agree, James White is probably most likely to outperform his ADP.
It's just like if you go wide receiver heavy and you want to have a more of a floor, because I think Sony Michel could be this year's Carlos Hyde. If he remains healthy, he could
It's a pretty good
inefficiently
comparison for him, actually.
get to 1,000 yards if they just commit to him. Because this could be a team that has a very good defense that wants to ride their running game. So Michelle could end up getting 250 plus carries. Like, even if he sucks at running the football, he could find himself, getting 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. And that's good enough, for a low RB2, RB3 finish.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that with James White, especially, I think that he will be continue to be utilized in that passing game because where the Patriots most likely probably aren't going to be scoring a lot of points, they're probably also going to be playing from behind in a lot of games, which means they're going to have to keep throwing it to stay competitive in those games. And when I was looking at their schedule, I had them pegged for 5, maybe 6 wins at best. I mean, the schedule is not as easy, nothing compared to what we saw last year, especially the first half of the year. So I think that it's going to be an uphill battle for them, this season, as much as I love them.
It just depends on this defense. I think this defense will control. It could be like the Bears where they go 8-8 with a great defense and a mediocre offense, or they're like Buffalo and they have a good enough offense to win a little bit more games.
Yeah.
Or it could just go fucking turn up and just be a defense that struggles because they get leaned on too much and the offense can't do enough to keep them in games, in the first 3 quarters.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that was weird. All right, on to the wide receivers. So we've beaten the running backs kind of over the head here. Julian Edelman's ADP has fallen way off. 803 wide receiver 37. N'Keal Harry is going essentially free. And then, well, I'll look this up before I throw it out.
That's all that
there,
matters.
But, yeah,
if you want to do, he's free.
Right.
Philip Dorsett went to Seattle. There is
Sanu's
these are
still
the 2
there, but yeah, Sanu's still there. Myers flashed a little bit. These are the 2 receivers you're targeting. If you take Harry, you're betting on upside. If you take Edelman, you're betting on continued consistent performance. If I'm taking either of them, it's probably Edelman, but I don't know that I want either of them.
Yeah, I'm personally going to go Edelman. I mean, I know that Harry has that upside, but again, I need to see a little bit more from him. We don't really know very much about him in the NFL because he did start the first half of last year, on the IR. So I'm going to go with Edelman. He currently is at his ADP as well. I mean, if he's your wide receiver 3 or even your flex, that's a risk that I'm willing to take personally. I mean, the guy's got 6 straight seasons of averaging at least 9 to 10 targets a game. He has a really short ADOT of about 9 to 10 yards, which I think is perfectly fine for a young quarterback that's very inexperienced. Whereas N'Keal Harry is somebody that might try to stretch the field a little bit more, especially with his athleticism. And with Edelman playing the slot, I think that he's going to act very much like a James White, running those short to intermediate routes and just continuing to getting those targets, especially where he doesn't have very much competition around him, like you mentioned, especially with the exception of maybe N'Keal Harry.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Julian Edelman is the perfect receiver that I'm targeting if I'm going robust RB and I want a floor type of receiver. Between him and like a guy like Keenan Allen, which we talked about last week, even if this offense is bad and can't score points, you're going to follow where the targets are going to be. And what better safety blanket than a slot receiver that works extremely well over the middle? Now, we'll see, if this offense can actually produce anybody at all. If you think this defense is going to take a step backwards and be in more shootouts, N'Keal Harry could end up paying off on that free tag. But I think he'll end up being picked up and dropped a bunch throughout the season because as of right now, he's your end of bench stash. Maybe upside. With no real touchdown upside in this offense, I wouldn't take N'Keal Harry. Just because you're not projecting him to get a lot of targets this year. So why not, go for the guy who should be the safety blanket in Edelman for their young quarterback.
Fair enough. All right. On to anything else on the Patriots before we move on. Is there anything you want to talk about in the tight end situation at all? For me personally, no. But Chris, anything else on the Patriots?
No, and as far as their tight ends, Evan Ansiari is a guy that I'm interested in looking at, years down the road. But in redraft, no. Dynasty, he has a little bit of interest for me just because of his pass catching and athleticism. But for this year, I'm probably not touching either of them.
Sure. All right, on to the Buffalo Bills. And as always, starting with the quarterback and working down, how good can Josh Allen be? Can Josh Allen progress? I'm the resident Josh Allen fanboy, so I'll go last. Chris, let's go ahead and start with you. Give us your take on Josh Allen. Do you think he's going to continue to improve? Do you think he's going to fall off? What do we get out of Josh Allen this year?
I love Josh Allen's potential. I think that he can easily be a top 5 fantasy quarterback. And when I was kind of looking to see how he's progressed throughout his career over the last couple of years, since week 12 of the 2018 season, only Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, and Russell Wilson have more fantasy points than Josh Allen. And that's total and also on a per game basis. The one thing that does worry me, as I'm sure it does everybody else, is his accuracy issues. He's someone who has really struggled with his accuracy and his consistency with his accuracy. He has become more consistent last season than what we saw in his rookie year. And he was 6th in deep ball accuracy last year, which was really great. Now, 40% of those deep balls did go to John Brown, but I do think with the addition of Stephon Diggs, that'll really help to, stretch the field a little bit more for the Buffalo Bills. And I think that as long as he can have a clean pocket, we're going to see that accuracy really start to improve with him. But yeah, I think top 5 is kind of his floor right now. I think he has a chance to be top 3, but top 5 absolutely for him.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So I have always I have been kind of on the downturn, or not downturn. I've always been.
You've been lower than me.
Lukewarm. I've been lower than you on Josh Allen, and like you have to do when they come out of college and into the NFL, you have to readjust how you view players as they perform when they enter the pros. And Josh Allen, while has his accuracy problems, has passing problems, the Bills have done, I think, a fantastic job at masking a lot of those issues and letting him kind of just go out there and play. You add in Cole Beasley and John Brown last year, the passing offense definitely got better. They have a better offensive line. You draft Zach Moss this year, you bring in Stephon Diggs. Year 2 with Dawson Knox, year 2 with John Brown and Cole Beasley. It's not hard to expect him to progress again as a passer this year. 9 rushing touchdowns may be hard to do again, especially with drafting a bigger back in Zach Moss, maybe a little less chances around the goal line, even though he didn't get a bunch last year. It's hard to predict rushing production, but the Bills should have, more than enough positive game scripts planned this year in one of the worst divisions in football. They still have a top 5 defense. And when you trade, 5 draft picks for a receiver with your young quarterback, you're signaling that you're going all in with him, that you are doing the best you can to put these dominant players around him. And I love Stephon Diggs. I may be a bit lower on him, but I think when it comes to just Josh Allen, he's going, I think, as a QB8 right now. Like, there's no way in hell I don't see him finishing less than QB8. Obviously, barring injury. And I think he has top 4, top 5 upside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got to agree on the upside for Josh Allen. I think it's top 4, top 5 as well. He progressed last year as far as his consistency goes. Only 461 attempts still, and finished very, very well. I think that goes up with the addition of Stephon Diggs. His completion percentage, he improved by 6% year over year from his rookie season. And one thing about Josh Allen that a lot of people were concerned about with the gunslinger mentalities was interceptions, but he was 20th in interceptable passes, 29th in danger plays last year. So not only was he going deep, he was going deep in relative safety, not putting the ball in danger. And I think that the addition of Stephon Diggs and a second year of Dawson Knox really going to help that. I think that Diggs is going to help open up the intermediate game a bit. And again, Dawson Knox, who we'll get to in a minute, is going to help open that up for Josh Allen. And I think once you unlock that intermediate game, you're really going to see Josh Allen start to see his full potential. And that's what they've done by adding Stephon Diggs to that team, is opened up the intermediate game for him. I think that's going to help his completion percentage. I think it's going to help his pass attempts. You're still going to have the rushing floor with him. And John Brown's still there. So you're still going to have that deep ball upside with Josh Allen. Anything else on Josh Allen? I don't know how you top that.
One other thing I just wanted to throw out is that, not that it was going to make a huge difference to this completion percentage, but his wide receivers did total the 5th most number of drops throughout the entire league last year. So obviously adding Stephon Diggs is going to help, start to improve that percentage there for him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good call out. All right, on to the running backs for the Bills. Lots been made about Devin Singletary and really Zach Moss as well. A lot of people that like Zach Moss, a lot of people that went tepid on Zach Moss with the 40 time. And then I don't know that there's anybody that's, well, I'm sure there is people, but more polarizing than what Devin Singletary is. So, Dan, let's start with you here. How do you break down this backfield? Which guy are you targeting?
I'm definitely not taking Singletary in the 4th round at RB24. Zach Moss, I'll look at as basically, I guess, kind of your end of RB bench stash. 10th round or a 1009 is ADP, RB46 at the moment. They're not that far off in terms of athletic profile. Moss weighs 20 pounds bigger based on Pro Profiler. Singletary had 2 red zone touches or 2 goal line carries last year compared to Frank Gore, who I think at 13. Most of that should go back to Zach Moss as a bigger back. Moss has a better pass catching profile. I'm not high on either. Singletary was massively efficient last year, which is fantastic to see. But I expect regression in that department based on its athletic profile. You bring in a better competition than Zach Moss. I don't know if it starts off as an even split. I think it ends up being some sort of split in either way. And you're relying on really, really unsustainable efficiency from Singletary to produce those fantasy points again. I'm not chasing it. I'm avoiding, for sure, I'm avoiding Singletary, and I'll maybe look at Zach Moss's way if I feel like there's upside there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm personally not targeting either guy. I think Singletary, if Singletary was going to be the main guy, if he was going to be that workhorse, 3 down back for them, then absolutely, because I love his ability. But I do think that Zach Moss is going to be taking away a lot of those, those carries inside the 10, inside the 5. When you look at what Frank Gore did last year, as a mid 30-year-old, he handled the ball like 55% of the carries inside the 10 and 61% of the carries inside the 5, where Singletary, his numbers were right around 9 to 10% for those carries. So, Singletary is not going to be involved in the goal line or short yardage opportunities. Those are most likely going to go to Zach Moss. And, instead of being at 3 down back, we could see Singletary on 1st and 2nd down. Now, with that being said, Singletary did produce some really good numbers in a very limited fashion last year, which I thought was really, really great to see. He produced about 12 and a half fantasy points per game. And that was only with, seeing about 152 carries, I think it was, throughout the entire year. So he does have that upside. And, as mentioned earlier, he's a very polarizing player, but middle of the 4th round might be a little bit too high for a guy that's not going to be getting the really high bulk of the workload for them.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree. Singletary was hyper efficient, but I'm with Dan here. I don't know how sustainable it is. He was 3rd in breakaway run rate, 3rd in juke rate, but the athletic profile doesn't really support that being a continued pattern. And for all the hay that was made about Zach Moss's 40 times, Singletary's is actually worse. Not that 40 times matter all that much with running backs, but they're both above a 4.65, which is about when you start to see a drop off in productivity. And I think what you're hoping for here and what's going to be the difference maker is touchdowns. And to what Chris said, Frank Gore handled most of that work last year. And I'd imagine that's going to be Zach Moss's role, not Devin Singletary's. What you're hoping for from Devin Singletary is for him to repeat the efficiency that he had last year and maybe a little bit of an uptick in workload. And I don't know that either of those things is a safe bet. And it's something I'd be more comfortable with around, maybe a round or two later than what I am in the 4th round. So if I have to take one of these guys, and I probably won't own either, it's going to be Zach Moss.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
All right. And then the wide receiver core, Josh Allen, can he support Stephon Diggs and John Brown? Cole Beasley was never a thing. So really just Stephon Diggs and John Brown. How do you see that working out with Josh Allen? Do you see him supporting Diggs in the same way that maybe a Kirk Cousins did or a Case Keenum did? And what does the addition of Diggs do to John Brown?
So Diggs was one of the best deep threat receivers last year with Minnesota. They expanded his role for that final year with them. Well, I think John Brown can definitely operate in the in that intermediate range. His role has really always been just a deep threat, but we got to see the efficiency. We got to see the consistency from them as Brown was Josh Allen's number one. It wouldn't surprise me if John Brown remains his number one for a while. Obviously, we talk about it a lot with the weird offseason we're featuring this, or the weird offense, or the weird offseason that we're seeing this year. Diggs coming over into a new system, new team. He has to build that rapport with Josh Allen. It may be a little bit of John Brown early on, and then you may see a change in that. I would rather have John Brown in the 11th round than Diggs in the 5th. Diggs is someone that I'm pretty much avoiding. I don't completely buy into the fact he's going to be as productive in this offense. He moves to a similar style, which should be more of a run first, defense heavy. Game script should lead towards more of a run first type of offense. If you believe that Buffalo will win this division and should win it handily, in my opinion, with how good that they are, it's is there going to be enough passing attempts for them to feature both of these receivers in this offense on a consistent basis? And I would rather bet my money on the far cheaper receiving option than John Brown.
I'm kind of right there with you. I think that right now where Diggs is going as the wide receiver 23, I would not be surprised if he does not finish as a wide receiver 2, to be honest with you, a top 24 wide receiver. I don't think Josh Allen is able to support both of those guys to be, week in and week out fantasy starters. I think, Diggs might be a little bit more consistent with John Brown having those boomer bust games. And I know we touched on Cole Beasley not being a thing, but I love me some Cole Beasley. I think where he's a free square right now in redraft formats, I think him playing in the slot, kind of being a safety blanket, for those short yardage passes from Allen, who has struggled with his accuracy, especially throwing the deep ball. I think that Beasley is certainly a guy that I might be looking at towards the very end of my draft in the the last round or two, or at least someone I'm going to be keeping an eye on the waiver wire throughout the season. So I'm not targeting Diggs or Brown. I will say if I had to pick one, it would be Brown just based off of his ADP. I don't feel like sending a fifth round pick on Stephon Diggs. I'd have to get him late 6th, early 7th for me to kind of go with him there.
Sure. I agree with the volume thing. Again, Josh Allen just 464 attempts last year. You'd have to see that to make both guys super sustainable, plus maybe an ancillary third, and for the running backs to be at where they're being drafted, you're going to have to see his passes uptick by at least 50, if not more. And I don't know that that's a sure thing. Stephon Diggs, I think probably hurts maybe Cole Beasley a little bit, just because, yes, Dan mentioned Diggs was great at the deep ball last year, but Diggs is versatile. We've seen Diggs move into the slot. We've seen him play short. We've seen him play intermediate. And we've seen him go deep. And John Brown, really, we know John Brown is your deep guy. Cole Beasley, 106 targets last year and managed to turn that into just 778 yards. And you expect a little bit more on that target volume, and I think that Diggs gives them that. But, if John Brown's your run deep and go get it guy, you can't, I don't think with that volume you can expect, Diggs, Beasley, and a streamer in Dawson Knox, who we'll get to in a second. So I'm with you guys on John Brown's the guy I want to take a shot at. He has a defined role. He has the rapport with Josh Allen, and I think he has more boom to him than anybody else in this offense. Diggs being the 23, I wouldn't be surprised if he lives up to that ADP. I think I differ there a little bit to where I wouldn't be surprised if he does live up to that back end wide receiver 2 value. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't either. I'm pretty on the fence about that. I think it's a little bit higher than what I'd be willing to take him. So I'm John Brown here.
Yeah, I just don't think there's enough upside in this offense to want to spend a top 6 round pick on either of these receivers. Would have shocked me if Diggs went out there and bowled out and made both Brown and Beasley kind of not a thing. Sure, and Diggs is a fantastic receiver. He's constantly regarded as a top 3 to 5 route runner in the NFL. He can get open with ease better than most receivers can in this league, and that should be better for Josh Allen. But again, volume is always keen in here, and if you believe that that Josh Allen is not going to, or that this offense isn't going to be playing from behind a bunch, it's hard to envision them throwing the ball, 550 plus times.
Yeah. And as far as Dawson Knox being a streamer, the other thing here, you'd still have to see a pretty good uptick. I love Dawson Knox. I think if I'm desperate, sure. I think he has talent to be very, very good. But again, you got to see a massive volume uptick. So I think he's nothing more than a streamer and one that you pick up off of waivers if you see volume going his way with any form of consistency. And that's more so than the 4-ish targets a game, 3 to 4 targets a game he was getting last year.
Yeah, I think something also to keep in mind is that, usually with young tight ends, it takes them 2, 3, 4 years to really kind of hit their stride, because a lot of these tight ends that are coming into the league now are, they're either transitioning from a wide receiver to a tight end, or they haven't really been playing football very long, and they're just super athletic guys that are now learning how to play football. A perfect example is that we'll get to later on is Mike Gesicki. Not a phenomenal football player, but just super athletic and has the tools. He just needs to. These guys just need to put it all together. And I think Dawson Knox is one of those guys that I think he will be. One of those names that we're talking about. But it's going to take him another couple seasons for him to really, really be that guy.
Yeah, there does seem to be more of a learning curve with tight ends, and Dawson Knox is a guy that I think played 4 years in college, but he was hurt for the majority of those 4 years in college, so there's still going to be a curve for him.
And he played with, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Marcus Lodge
Jordan Wilkins was part of that team, Jordan Ta'amu. I mean, there was just a lot of talent there around him.
There's a lot of talent there. It was hard for him to see a bunch of talent. I mean, he had 50 targets last year, just 2 touchdowns. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he had 1 or 2 worthy weeks. It's one of those things where, if you're streaming Dawson Knox, it's probably because you're in a super deep league, too tired in premium, type of league, and you need just a starter.
I think only a thing in the Superflex Super Friends League. I don't think that really exists.
I've been playing a lot of tight end premium leagues.
But start 2.
I have another one. I have 2 other leagues that I started up this year that are start 2 tight end. Dynasty though. Dynasty. So makes sense. Yeah. Dex is right.
Anything else on the Bills?
No, I'm good.
No.
All right, cool. Moving on. So it's summer. Nights out. I don't know about you guys, but one of my favorite treats in the summer is a little bit of ice cream. So breaking up the monotony here, we'll give Dan the 101. I'll go second. Chris, go third, because I don't believe in hospitality, apparently. I want to do a quick 3-round mix in. Okay, fine. You can go second. I want to do a quick 3-round ice cream toppings or mix in draft. So you're standing at the counter at Cold Stone. What are you getting mixed into your shake, your ice cream? Throw it on top of that. What do you like, Dan? Let's start with you.
Oh man, so chocolate syrup. Is that like? Can I put that on there? Because that's being
It's a topping.
it's a topping like that. I just love chocolate, and it's one of those things where like there's so much more you can put on there, but chocolate syrup is always a must for me. I actually got ice cream today, put chocolate syrup on it. So this is a very worthy time to bring this up and talk about it. So 101 for me is Hershey's chocolate syrup.
All right, Chris, you're standing in line at the Baskin Robbins. What's your topping?
101 for me has got to be Reese Cups.
Atta boy.
Ooh, that's good too. It's a good one.
All right. My 101 is going to be, since Reese's Cups was taken, a lot of people would expect Oreo to go here. I'm not going with that, though. I got to go with cookie dough. Cookie dough is my favorite thing to have in ice cream. Ever since I was a little kid going through the DQ drive-through, cookie dough blizzards were where it was at for me. So I got to go with cookie dough. Dan, what's your second pick?
I'm going with cheesecake chunks because cheesecake is my all-time favorite dessert, and cheesecake with literally anything else mixed in with ice cream is just fucking incredible.
Chris, what's your second?
Number 2 for me is going to be Snickers because a Snickers Blizzard is one of my favorite desserts of all time.
Yep.
All right, it got back to me. I'm gonna go with Oreo. You can get it everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're at McDonald's, if you're at Freddy's. Well, assuming the McDonald's ice cream machine is working. It is an OG of ice cream mix-ins. Great and shakes, improves just about anything. And now we're getting deep here, Dan. What's your third and final pick for ice cream mix-ins?
We're gonna go with the other kind of OG mix-in that gets thrown in a lot of different. I think almost all places has chocolate mint as as a topping or as just a style of ice cream you can pick from. Like again, if the McDonald's ice cream machine is working, you can get it there. So again, I'm going chocolate mint.
Chris?
That's a good one. My final one, and this is like, for me, it's a sleeper of toppings, and that's Butterfinger. That's one of my favorites.
A lot of people, Butterfinger doesn't get a lot of respect, but I had a little stretch there where I was all about Butterfingers, and the Butterfinger BBs, those were fantastic.
Yes.
Bart Simpson approved. All right, my number 3, again, a little bit of a sleeper pick. It's something that's become a lot more prominent here recently. I got to go with the yellow cake. So, the birthday cake. And
Sure.
Birthday cake shakes are probably one of my favorite things to just walk up to the Cold Stone counter and order. Shout out Cold Stone. The show is not sponsored by Cold Stone in any way, but shout out Cold Stone. Unless you're listening.
Unless you're listening, Cold Stone.
Exactly.
Yes.
In which case, go for it. The cake batter's got to be of any form. Birthday cake has got to be my third. It just provides such a unique, interesting twist. And who doesn't love licking the cake batter off with some beaters at the end of mom making your birthday cake or whatever? So, Dan, you recap. What were your 3? Just so people can weigh in.
I did chocolate syrup, cheesecake bites, and chocolate mint pieces.
Chris, your 3?
Mine were Reese Cups, Snickers, and Butterfinger.
All right, and I rounded it out with cookie dough, Oreo, and birthday cake. So, everybody that was listening to the show is now running out for ice cream now. You are welcome. Let's hit a beer review.
I've got to say, I'm very jealous of you guys because where I grew up and where I currently live, we don't have any real chains, or places that are very popular elsewhere. So like I never really experienced much Cold Stone. We have a Dairy Queen, but it only stays open a couple months out of the year. So I never had the chance to try the birthday cake toppings or things like that. So I'm jealous of you guys.
Oh, that's so un-American right now. I'm not gonna lie.
I feel bad.
That's Martha's Vineyard for you right there.
I honestly feel bad for you.
I feel bad for me.
I grew up in not a big town or anything, but Petersburg had a Dairy Queen that was open year round, so I got a lot of blizzards as a kid. Didn't really get Cold Stone or Baskin Robbins or anything until my adult life, though. A lot of Dairy Queen.
Yep. No, never had Baskin Robbins before.
32
So
flavors. It's okay. Cold Stone's better.
It is better. This one's so close to me.
Beer review.
I will say guilty pleasure down about 12 out of the 16 weeks when I lived up there. And we would leave Eddie's, we would go to Baskin Robbins on the way home, get some shakes for the night game.
That is, I wish I did that more. I'm just more of a, go to the grocery store and spend the same amount of money on a tub of ice cream.
So
because I'm fatty, and that's pretty much why.
The whole thing that prompted this was I just finished off some Ben and Jerry's right before this show. So that's what prompted the ice cream question.
I love it.
It's a great question.
Well, it's great.
All right, Dan. Go ahead and let's get the Sam Adams reviews out of the way. Actually, whichever one of you. Well, Dan, you go first. We'll let the guests go last for these two, just so you get a feel for it. Most of our guests aren't used to reviewing beer. So, Dan, go for it.
Good.
All right. So again, I'm drinking Sam Adams Porch Rocker. It is a tart rattler. They say tart rattler style with their Golden Hellas lager. I will admit, the first sip I was a little thrown off because it was all mainly lager with a little bit of that lemon lime zest that you get from this. As I drank it more, that stuck out more. The rattler really stuck out more. I'm not a big Hellas fan, so that kind of turned me off, but this is perfect beer for this time of year. It's hot outside. There's only 4.5% booze, so you can drink a lot of these. You can crush a lot of these. My store actually sells 12-pack cans, which I think would be perfect for playing disc golf in. So
is that why you have it? Be honest.
What's that?
Is that why you have it? Be honest.
No, I got it because of the show. I will probably maybe pick up a 12-pack, depending on price. I forgot how much it cost me for disc golf. Again, it's perfect for just hot nights, warm nights, poolside. So if you like rattlers, if you don't mind the lemon lime, type of zest, I know you're not a big lime fan, Hopper. So it's a solid beer for what they're going for.
Yeah, I'm not a huge lemon and beer fan either. I mean, occasionally, but I usually prefer it be hop induced though, not zest induced. All right, I was drinking Old Bakeries Blueberry Cream Ale. Lot of blueberry on the nose, but it's a lot of fresh blueberry, almost like mom's homemade blueberry muffins. Not that I would know what that smells like because we always made Jiffy, but you get it. Light body on the back end. I'm out of it, so I didn't get to take the sip right before I did this. But super light body, just like most cream ales are. Very crisp, very clean, very easy to drink. Like Dan said with the Radler, very, very easy drinker, especially for hot summer days out by the pool. Blueberry definitely stands all the way through. It's not super tart like a lot of blueberry beers are. Normally you get blueberry in sours or things like that, but it is not super tart at all. Just a nice crisp blueberry flavor in a cream ale. So very, very good. And I think the blueberry is actually more prominent now than it was when I drank it a couple weeks ago. And that's weird because fruit's normally the first thing to leave a beer.
Yes.
All right, Chris, give it a go.
Impress us.
Alrighty. So I'm drinking. I was and still currently am drinking Sam Adams Summer Ale. I made sure to have a few on deck here for when I ran out. It's a much for a wheat beer. It is a little bit on the lighter side, which I do like. It has the orange, the lemon, the lime zest to it. It's also got the grains of paradise, with the lemon peels included. It's a little bit of a higher alcohol content. It's for Sam Adams, especially for a seasonal beer. It's about 5.5%. But again, it's one of those beers that is very refreshing for me. It's one I can drink all year long, but perfect on a warm day, whether you're barbecuing, you're out on the golf course, wherever you may be. It could be snowing, and I would be just enjoying the crap out of this beer.
Well done. Probably the best guest review we've had.
Yeah, that was Easily top 5.
All right.
Easily top 3.
On to things
like Josh Allen top 5?
Yes, Josh
Yeah.
Allen top 5 for sure.
All right.
Your beer review was Josh Allen's upside.
It was.
I like it.
I'll give it that. On to things that are not nearly as good as that beer review. The New York Jets. Sam Darnold. So I kind of he's going undrafted.
Yeah, he is right now in single QB leagues. He's free.
Okay,
As he should be.
Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. In Superflex 2 QB leagues, I definitely like him. Not a knock on Sam Darnold, more a knock on what's around Sam Darnold. But one of y'all give your take so I can get another beer.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sure. So yeah, it's not that I don't like Sam Darnold. Watching him his freshman year at USC, I loved his mobility. He did have a lot of trouble, with his decision making, especially in the red zone. But it's just Adam Gase that I don't trust. I don't trust anything to do for the most part with this Jets offense with Gase at the helm. For Sam Darnold, he hasn't finished inside of the top 20 quarterbacks in points per game, the last couple of seasons. He has 4 total games where he's had 300 or more passing yards. Where he's going in drafts right now, which is almost free, I'd much rather go with Gardner Minshew. From the ADP that I was looking at, they're both going around very similar spots. I'd be okay with Gardner Minshew. Or hell, give me Derek Carr over Sam Darnold right about now. But Sam Darnold, I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole.
That's fair. I mean,
God.
Darnold struggled a lot last year. Mono, I think he battled other injuries. He battled Adam Gase, which is a 16-game injury in its own self. You bring in you bring in Brashad Perriman, you draft Denzel Mims to surround him with a better receiving core, even though he lost Robbie Anderson. Chris Herndon should be back healthy and hopefully not suspended. A better offensive line. I believe they spent some decent capital, brought in some people. So overall, it's a better investment around him. Again, I agree. I'm not going to go after him in single QB leagues. I think he'll be fine for streaming worthy if he has a good matchup on bye weeks. I think he's a solid, QB2, QB3 in super flex leagues because there is some upside to him. He's a very young quarterback, and if this offense does take up, at least show a little bit more than what they did last year, Darnold's game logs after he came back from after that horrible game against New England, he did put up some respectable weeks. From weeks 10 through 12, he put up over 20 points per game. So he can at least be of something in plus matchups. This defense should be better, but it's still the Jets. We can't really expect much from them. So I'm right with this question in its own right. I think he's worth it in QB2 leagues and Superflex, and I would rather just pick him up on off the waiver wires and single QBs.
Yeah.
So if you heard an oh God in the background or watching on YouTube, you might have just realized that the beer I opened completely exploded. And the reason that's bad
was it the blueberry?
It was the blueberry. And I opened it and it just started gushing out of the top, foaming just immediately over, no time to recover. And then I had that moment of what do I do, not realizing there's a trash can to my left I could have held it over. So I'm like trying to keep it away, and you can't really see it here, but there's an L desk I'm sitting at, and my work computer and my desktop computer to my right, which is where I could have but I would have fried a $90 keyboard heading on that direction. Could have gone to the left, but that's where all the equipment I'm hosting the podcast with is. And I panicked. Much like Sam Darnold's going to do when he has nobody to throw the football to. I agree that he should generally be undrafted. I like the talent of Josh Darnold. Good Lord. I'm out of sorts now. Josh Darnold, Sam Darnold. There we go. I like the talent. I've liked the arm talent since he came out, but the Jets have done a really, really bad job of surrounding him with weapons. And I do not see that. I do not see him as the type of quarterback at this stage in his career that's going to make something out of nothing. He's still super young. Still like him in Dynasty. You hope to see some strides in some of his peripheral numbers this year, but I don't think in redraft he's going to get it done. As soon as I was sitting down, I heard Chris say, "Give me Gardner Minshew. Give me Gardner Minshew all day over Sam Darnold or Josh Darnold or Sam Arnold or whatever."
So I'm looking at 2 QB ADP. Sam Darnold right now, QB 18,704.
That's fair.
Chris, you mentioned 2 guys you take ahead of him, and Gardner Minshew and Derek Carr, both going in the 8th round as QB 21 and 22. I agree on Minshew. I wouldn't take Derek Carr over him, but I do 1,000% agree on who could be a dark horse QB1 in Gardner Minshew.
Mm-hmm. All right. On to the running game. You got Le'Veon Bell, running back 19, going as the 307. Personally, I think that the talent of Le'Veon Bell is probably worth that gamble of taking him as the running back 19. He should see volume, and I think he can live up to that. I just don't know how good you're going to feel about him living up to that, though.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same, like it was just bad for him last year. Horrible offensive line. He just a bad offense in general. When you lose Darnold and you lose any sense of touchdown upside of the offense, obviously 4 total touchdowns just makes sense to that. Just like with Fournette, I do expect some positive regression for him. And as of right now, there's no competition for touches. So again, like if you're going as a safe running back 2, I have no issue taking Bell. I wouldn't take Bell. Like, I don't know if I take him as my RB1. I just don't think there's enough upside to him in this offense. But I think as a safe RB2, with a with a strong path to his opportunity touch share, should be again in the top 10. It was at 76.8% last year, number 7th in the league. Again, he should be top 10 in opportunity share, which takes into account his touches, his carries and targets amongst our running backs in this offense. There's no competition for him in that standpoint. So touchdowns may not be there again, but again, you generally follow touches when it comes to running backs, and he should be one of the higher ones in the league.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. With he would have to absolutely be my RB2 for me to draft him, and I'd feel a lot better if he was able to fall to say the mid 4th round as opposed to middle of the 3rd round where he's currently going. And with the return of Chris Herndon, as long as he's not suspended towards the beginning of the season, is Herndon going to be taking away some of that short yardage receiving work that maybe Le'Veon Bell would have seen? Because with the Jets, they're going to be playing from behind in a lot of games. They averaged the league worst 17 points per game last year. So I don't see them, running the ball as much because they're going to be behind in a lot of games. So they're probably going to have to be throwing it quite a bit. And for Le'Veon Bell, is he going to be able to get the total touches between rushing attempts, and receptions? And for someone who's going as the RB19 middle of the 3rd round, I think it's a little bit too rich for my blood.
Yeah, I agree that he'd have to be my 2. I don't know that I would go any higher than the end of the 3rd round or that early 4th. But I would still probably do it there. Dan, do you have some names that are around Le'Veon Bell? Can we do an either or?
Yeah. So right now, with updated ADP, because I always do today's ADP on Fantasy Calc, this is taken into account the last 6 days. Le'Veon Bell has moved up to RB14, 304.
Okay.
So right now, I'll give you a guy tied with Bell, and that's Chris Carson. Le'Veon Bell or Chris Carson.
I'm taking Chris Carson.
Yeah, Chris Carson's where I'm leaning.
I'm going Bell still. I expect competition for Carson, especially when Penny gets healthy. But either way, Le'Veon Bell or Austin Eckler.
Ooh, Eckler all day.
Yeah.
Is Eckler going ahead of him or behind him? Just curious.
One spot ahead of him.
Okay, yeah. That's not persuading my answer, but I would go Austin Eckler. I just took Eckler in, I think, the 4th round of a mock draft. So,
nice.
Yeah, I would go Eckler.
All right.
Who's
One
re-
more. We'll go with okay. We'll do two more. Le'Veon Bell or Melvin Gordon?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I'd probably
I'm personally going to go Le'Veon Bell. Even though I actually have them back to back in my rankings at the moment, but I'm going to give the edge to Bell here.
I'd go with Le'Veon Bell. I think Phillip Lindsay is going to be more efficient than Melvin Gordon and cut into. I don't think Melvin Gordon's going to see the volume or even the passing work that he saw in Los Angeles, and he's kind of been an inefficient runner typically. So I think Lindsay's going to hurt Gordon enough to where Bell with the volume is going to be ahead of him.
Sure. So Gordon's going 3 spots behind Bell. I do more players ahead of Bell, but there's every single one should go ahead of him. So we'll go Le'Veon Bell or James Conner.
Oof. Now that one's closer. Probably James Conner for me. Assuming he can stay healthy, I think that Ben being back is going to open that up a little bit more for him. And again, I don't really see Benny Snell or Jalen Samuels hurting him a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm also going to go James Conner with hoping that he can stay healthy this year. But I mean, we've seen what both of those running backs can do, but with James Conner, yeah, Benny Snell and Jalen Samuels are not going to, they're really not going to cut into his workload.
Yeah, and and we like Anthony McFarland. I'm just not sure what he's going to be right out of the gate. So
down the road, absolutely. I'm a big McFarland fan down the road.
Yep.
So fun fact on FF Calc, you can look to see how high a player has been drafted during these mocks. James Conner won at the 107.
Dear Lord.
During this week stretch.
Okay, that's too high.
That just shocked the shit out of me. So anyways, I would also go James Conner. I think he's extremely close. Conner's health issues and potential inability to play a full season and to handle that type of workhorse backfield makes this a tad bit closer, but his upside in that offense with a healthy Big Ben just it gives me that slight edge. So I think those are four running backs. In comparison to Le'Veon Bell, to kind of give you guys a thought of who you'll be picking against when you're looking at Le'Veon Bell in your drafts.
Sure. All right, on to the pass catchers here. Everybody can pretty much be had double-digit rounds in for free. So, Chris, which of these pass catchers are you gonna target? Is it Dawson? Is it Perriman? Is it Crowder? Is it Chris Herndon? And you're just saying screw the wide receivers. Denzel Mims potentially. Who are we looking at here?
I almost peed my pants with excitement when I saw this question in the script and knew that we were going to be talking about this today because I want all of the Jamison Crowder shares that I can get my hands on.
Yes.
Last season, Crowder was tied for third in the league with 88 targets in the slot, averaging 14 PPR points per game in the 13 games that he played with Sam Darnold before Darnold decided to start making out with random college girls and got himself mono. In the 3 games that he didn't play with Darnold, he averaged just 5 fantasy points per game. So, I mean, if the two of them were able to put together a full 16-game season, I know a lot of people don't like to look at those kind of projections, but the guy would have been a top 20 fantasy wide receiver. And with his current ADP, I mean, that's an absolute steal. So, I mean, he had career highs in both targets and receptions, surpassing 800 receiving yards. He had 6 touchdowns. I know that they lost Robbie Anderson, but they did add Rashad Perriman from Tampa Bay. They went out and drafted Denzel Mims. They are going to get Chris Herndon back, but at his current ADP, I'm all over Jameson Crowder.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was at. It's all over Jamison Crowder. I like Denzel Mims for Dynasty. Love Denzel Mims for Dynasty. But in redraft, it's Crowder. The rapport's there. Perriman was a last 3 weeks flash in the pan. That figures to fill the Robbie Anderson role, if you will. But we saw Anderson kind of struggle in the Robbie Anderson role a bit last year. Josh Doxson's never really materialized into much of anything. So yeah, it's Jamison Crowder for me.
Yeah, so Crowder going wide receiver 51 at 1103. Brashad Perriman's the only other receiver, at least based on FF Calc's ADP, that's been drafted 1408. Wide receiver 67, even though he's only been drafted 10 times in these 1,200 drafts during this time that this was taken. There's no fucking way I'm taking Brashad Perriman. I don't want a bad deep threat who can't stay healthy in this type of offense. It's always going to be Crowder. There might be some concern with Herndon, operating in the same level of the field. But Crowder was Darnold's safety blanket when Darnold played. He had a lot of games with 9+ targets in them. So there's this massive upside to him to go along with this nice floor that he presents with his target share. I do like Mims second half of the season when he gets more, acclimated into the offense. I think Mims is a fantastic talent, extremely athletic. But for a guy like Crowder, going into the 11th round, that's just too perfect.
Yeah. One thing on Chris Herndon, by the way, we liked him a lot as a breakout in his sophomore season. After the rookie year, he did put together over 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. Nothing from last year changes that for me from just kind of transitioning that take to this year. I love Chris Herndon. I love the upside of Chris Herndon as a player. They still haven't added anybody that I think takes targets away from Herndon. 54 is rookie year. I think that you do see Chris Herndon slide in as a back end tight end one, somebody you take at the end of your draft. Dan and I always talk about taking 1 or 2 tight ends with upside at the end of your draft and hoping something sticks. And Herndon's definitely one of those that has a high potential to stick. Keep in mind that, last year's dud from him was not based on performance, but performance enhancers, at least to start. And then he got hurt.
Hamstring.
Yeah, the hamstring injury. So just kind of a lost year for him, but there was nothing from that stops me from transitioning that take from year 2 to year 3 for him. All right. Anything else on the Jets?
No,
I don't think so.
All right, on to the Dolphins. And that's a show. Thank you. No. How long can Ryan Fitzpatrick hold off Tua? Is either worth drafting in super flex leagues. Again, breaking down the quarterback situation, Fitzpatrick definitely starts, especially given the absence of minicamp here for me. I think they're smart. Fitzpatrick, I think, can still win you some games. I think they're smart to keep Tua behind Fitzpatrick for a year and see what you got. Ultimately, I think you're probably going to get 8 to 10 games in with Fitzpatrick before you end up seeing Tua. I think it's going to be, if you see Tua this year, it's going to be similar to, I don't know exactly how late Haskins got in last year, but it's going to be late.
Yeah, I think that if you are going to see Tua, it's really going to depend on the Dolphins' record. And no one's really expecting them to come out blazing out of the gates. So, it's going to be how long are they going to, be willing to hold out and just hope that Tua is completely healthy. I know he's looked great in a lot of the videos that we've seen. He's gotten, rave reviews from doctors. But I'm with you. I think that it would be the smart decision to just let him sit behind a veteran quarterback for a year and let Fitzpatrick run the show, regardless of, the win-loss record. But Fitz is definitely worth drafting in super flex leagues. I'm not going to take him in a single QB league unless I need to start somebody for a bye week. But in super flex, certainly, he finished as the 17th overall quarterback last year. He's a guy that can get you about 15 fantasy points per game. And in a super flex format, I'm more than okay with that.
Yeah, I have no issue going Fitzpatrick in super flex leagues. I will take Tua, behind Fitz in these super flex drafts just in case. Just not that I want to have, the QB stranglehold in this Miami offense. I don't think this offense is going to be great, but to at least have 2 starting quarterbacks. Just the same way I feel about taking a guy like Derek Carr and and Marcus Mariota. I just want to have a starting quarterback at some point. But that's really how I feel about this offense and just with them in general. I'm not going out there specifically to try to target, either one of these quarterbacks and single QBs, and really even in super flex. Like, I'll take them, but they're not on top of my board as my main QB2 or even QB3.
Yeah, as with most situations, Tyrod and Herbert being one of these as well, I just kind of want to avoid that situation in any form of redraft, be it Superflex or otherwise. So, I think if I'm gonna take somebody, it'll be Fitzpatrick early on. I think Tua has a chance to get overdrafted. Again, this all shift as we get into training camp, but absent rookie mini camps, I think Tua is starting off with a disadvantage here.
Yep.
On to the running backs, Jordan Howard and Matt Breida. Matt Breida going undrafted, Jordan Howard at the 809. I say give me either and whichever one is cheaper.
So Breida I have seen a shift. Breida is actually going 3 spots ahead of Jordan Howard based on full point PPR, which is giving me the most updated information.
Your notes set me up for failure.
Sorry. I mean, I was shocked. I was like, I didn't see Breida, on these half point PPRs, but now I see him in full point for some reason, and he's going 2 spots ahead of Jordan Howard.
I say just give me whatever one is cheaper. I'm not in love with either of them. I know they can both be productive. They probably will both have a shot to be productive. We've seen Breida be absolutely explosive. We've seen Howard be somewhat explosive too with the Bears. So for me, it's just give me the cheaper of the two.
Yeah, for me and just the ADP that I've been looking at, there are just a couple of spots in between each other. Breida going at 905 in 12-team leagues, Jordan Howard at 907 in 12-team leagues. And while I don't want either player, I think you kind of have to look at, kind of try to predict the game script of what the Dolphins offense is going to do. And are they going to be playing from behind a lot? Because if they are, they're most likely going to be using more Matt Breida. If they're leading in games, they're going to lean on Jordan Howard just to kind of ground and pound. I probably would be leaning towards Jordan Howard just because I think he's going to get more of those short yardage, carries inside the 10, inside the 5, whenever Miami actually gets the opportunity to be in that location of the football field. But I'm going to lean Howard, and there's no real rhyme or reason for doing so, other than the fact that he's just going a couple spots later than Breida.
Yeah, I'm not excited about this backfield. Like, Breida should have an opportunity if he's got to stay healthy. I do agree with Chris that the Dolphins are probably going to be playing from behind more so than not. So give me the better pass catcher.
Yeah.
Howard should get the bulk of the first and second down carries. Should get their goal line carries when they get down there. Short yardage stuff. I think both running backs can be viable in certain situations. Howard should you should feel more confident in staying healthy. I just don't like this offense. I don't like the touchdown opportunity in this offense. So give me the guy that I expect to get more targets when healthy, and Matt Breida. I'm sorry, I forgot about Preston Williams. My bad.
Okay, so for what people can't see, I just typed in the show notes where Dan is looking as well. Dan hates Preston Williams because he didn't have Preston Williams listed in this question, and that's an absolute slight. So breaking down the wide receivers, it was can Devontae Parker being drafted at wide receiver 29, the 607, be a wide receiver 1. I think the answer, I think I'm leaning no on that, and it's because Devontae Parker really didn't become the monster that Devontae Parker was last year until Preston Williams got hurt. You're going to bring back Preston Williams, who I think is I think it was a UDFA.
Yep.
Absolutely surprised a lot of people early on. I think that both wide receivers had the opportunity to be serviceable in any given week, but I am not buying Devontae Parker can be a wide receiver 1. Is wide receiver 29 a fair draft position for him? Sure, but give me the guy that was producing that is going at the 1201 as the 53rd wide receiver off the board over Devontae Parker.
Actually, in my notes that I have, I have short answer is no. And why? Well, it's the return of Preston Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And as you just mentioned, weeks 1 through 9, Parker and Preston Williams were actually neck and neck in fantasy points. Williams led in targets. If you go pre-Williams injury, Parker had 6.5 targets per game, And then after week 9, when the injury occurred, it jumped all the way up to 9.5 targets per game. He had 4 games of 100 plus yards. After during that week 9 to the end of the season, and before week 9, he had 2 games where he had over 59 yards total.
Yeah.
So depending on how Preston Williams is going to return from this injury, this ACL injury he suffered in November, I think it's possible for Parker to be a wide receiver 1, but I'd be very surprised if it happens, because it took Parker how many years and this one injury to happen before he finally started to quote unquote break out. I just don't know if that consistency is going to continue because of the amount of mouths to feed on that offense now.
It also took a complete lack of a running game and the Dolphins playing from behind pretty much every week in order for that to happen as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think Parker could. I think if this defense is as bad as it looks to be, and this team is playing from behind Fitzpatrick, plays the majority of the season, I think there's a strong possibility that a guy like Parker could be a mid to high 2, or Preston Williams, fills out into that role. We'll see how he comes back from a midseason, ACL tear. We've seen other receivers, Cooper Kupp, do it.
I was going to mention that.
Similar success, but it's also one player to come back early, and we'll see what type of setback, if any setbacks come back from this. Does he lean too heavily on the opposite leg? Is a hamstring injury? Things like that, stuff that we've seen from other players as well. This is more so a slight on me. I did forget about Preston Williams. It's all my bad. But I also think both Parker and Williams are being disrespected. I think Parker could be even better than the wide receiver 29, even with a healthy Preston Williams.
See, I think that's about where I'd want Devontae Parker, though. Maybe up to 25 or 26, but I don't think that's that much of a slight, especially if you believe that Mike Gesicki is going to take a step forward. 12-12 tight end 14, and I think Gesicki has the talent potentially to outperform that.
Oh, I do. But here, so let's go back to Parker one quick. Would you rather have Parker or Stephon Diggs?
Oof. Give me Parker with upside, but give me a few more of those.
Okay, so Diggs.
Yeah, I'm going to take Parker.
Okay, so Diggs is the wide receiver 23. That's why. So we'll go a little bit higher.
What's in between them?
In between Parker or Deebo Samuel?
That's really close for me.
I'm gonna go Parker.
Yeah.
Okay. So Parker is 3 ranks behind him and almost a full round behind him. Devonta Parker or Tyler Lockett?
See, I think Tyler Lockett is one of the wide receivers that's being disrespected, and I think it's because people like DK Metcalf, and Metcalf was good last year, but Tyler Lockett was absolutely consistent in the Doug Baldwin role, and generally speaking, was a wide receiver 1-2 week in, week out most weeks. So I would go Tyler Lockett over Devontae Parker, and that's kind of why I'm wishy-washy in this area, is because there's going to be guys I like more, going to be guys I don't.
Yeah, I like Lockett.
Okay. Parker or Terry McLaurin?
Oof. That one's loaded. Probably McLaurin, honestly.
I'm going to go Parker, but in about a month or two, I wouldn't be surprised if my answer changes, because I think Haskins can take a step forward coming into this season, and the biggest beneficiary is going to be McLaurin.
McLaurin was just absolutely insane last year anyway, without much around him and on a bad offense. He still managed to produce week in and week out as a rookie and outperform pretty much everybody's expectations. And I think I have the benefit of the fact that we talked about McLaurin a couple weeks back, I think. So, and having had to think about that a little bit.
So that's all I really got. So those are all players going ahead of Parker.
Who's immediately behind him?
He's tied with Marquise Brown at 607.
Okay, Parker over Brown.
Yeah.
This one, I know where Hopper's going to go. So Parker or Brandon Cooks?
Oh, Brandon Cooks.
I know.
Man, it's not even close. Brandon Cooks is being super disrespected.
I'm going Parker, and it's not even close for me.
Really?
Oh, I want to
Yeah.
hear about this. Let's go.
All right. So
you did next week, I guess.
yeah, I actually just wrote this up. Let me hold on. I wrote this up for a mock draft take actually. But Brandon Cooks is going into an offense. Are you worried about Will Fuller being the wide receiver one in Houston? Because Brandon Cooks is going into an offense. There's 150 plus vacated targets from DeAndre Hopkins, and that's not just last year. That's every year. Yeah, you've got Kenny Stills there. I don't think that does much. That's 10.5 targets a game that were freed up, and they didn't draft anybody. We know Will Fuller can't stay healthy. Kenny Stills really didn't pop in that offense at all last year. And all Cooks has done when he's seen over 100 targets is averaged 76 receptions, 1,149 yards, 7 touchdowns, and his career high is 129 targets. He's been the one before. He's produced as the one before. He did it in New England. He did it in New Orleans. He produced with 2 other guys around him in Los Angeles. And while I'm down on Cooks for dynasty because of the concussion issues and the injury issues, there's nothing that says Brandon Cooks can't be a wide receiver one and isn't going to have the target volume to do that with DeAndre Hopkins not in Houston. Brandon Cooks is one of my favorite sleepers this year.
I like Cooks. I love the talent. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know, how long is it going to take him to build that rapport with Watson, with everything that's been going on. Maybe he has a, more of a second half of the season, burst
Sure.
for him. I don't believe that Fuller is going to be able to play more than 5 quarters of football this year. Same with Kiki Kuti. Neither of those guys can really stay healthy. I just don't know how much I trust this offense. As much as I love Deshaun Watson, I would rather fade Cooks right now and go with Parker.
And I can respect that. The one thing about Cooks you mentioned is how quick can he do that. So the one thing I will say about Brandon Cooks is it's not like this has been a guy that has played for one team his entire career. He's been the wide receiver, he's produced it at a high level on 3 different teams now in the 6 years he's been in the league. So I mean, he's proven that he can switch teams and adapt to the offense and adapt quickly enough in order to be good and to give you a very, very serviceable season. So that's why I kind of, even with the lack of an off-season program, he's shown the mental capacity to be able to learn a playbook and adapt. And that's why I'm kind of less concerned about that with him than I would be potentially some other guys.
And that's fair. Obviously he had a very down year last year with the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be chalked up to just being a blip on the radar because before that, he was a year in year out 1,000-yard receiving guy. So
and the Rams offense as a whole was down last year too. So I don't know. That's the one thing I look at there is. It wasn't just Cooks that was down, it was the team that was down. Woods was down, Kupp was up a little bit at the beginning, but he kind of fell off. Gurley was down, Goff was way down. So, it was that whole offense, not just Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
So for me, I think Brandon Cooks is a league winner this year, potentially. We got to see how he bounces back from these concussions. I'm not he has the skill set to where he can change offenses and be productive because when all else fails, just have him run deep and have him play with a quarterback that has no problem, pushing the ball vertically. This is still a bad defense, especially bad secondary. So Watson and his Houston offense playing from behind is definitely not a problem. I think he has more target competition when everyone's healthy. Problem is no one's ever really healthy in Houston. I do like Parker, though. I still think Parker, with the rapport that was built second half of the season, with Ryan Fitzpatrick playing the entire second half of the season, bows better for a early on production, at least in my opinion. I think Parker and Cooks are both disrespected. That's why I like, putting them, in this competition. And I think both of them should be higher than guys like Stephon Diggs and Deebo Samuel, maybe Terry McLaurin, and I won't say maybe Terry, they're in the same tier with Terry McLaurin, and DJ Chark, who's also going in that range, and Tyler Lockett as well.
Sure, I will shotgun a stag if Devontae Parker ends up higher than Brandon Cooks, barring injury this year.
Oh, hold on. Let me tweet that and bookmark it to make sure that we have that.
Yeah, I will shotgun a stag if Brandon Cooks does not finish higher than Devontae Parker this year, barring injury. Obviously, injury null and voids that. But
obviously. All right.
Now, is there a stipulation as far as how many games he would have to miss for that bet to be null and void?
Should we go points per game?
We can go points per game. Yeah.
Okay.
I say 10 game minimum.
10. Yeah, I'm on board with that. I was gonna say if the idea is that it starts slow, then I would want him to play at least 5. But if we're doing points per game, 10 game minimum. Shotgun a stag if Parker finishes higher than Brandon Cooks. Thank you, Ball Blast, for the idea of shotgunning crap beer for bets. We got
right, we can move on.
We got Bush Lights riding on Keyshawn Vaughn and
Sorry, who was that gave you the idea for the bet?
Ball Blast.
Nice.
They were we were a little inebriated after 3 hours of recording, and we took
little.
It was Bush Light bets, wasn't it, Dan?
Yes, I have that tweet.
It was Bush Light
blue
bets
yummies.
On Keyshawn Vaughn versus Zach Moss.
Yeah, I would take Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah, I think
good.
Most of us did. I think it was 3-1. I think Michelle's the only one.
It was 3-1. Michelle was the one that was on the Zach Moss.
That does not surprise me in the least.
Mike Gesicki, let's go ahead and give a quick take on him, and then we got one more not football related question.
All right, so I'll go off with Mike Gesicki because I'm just in love with this guy this year. I think that he could be primed for a really big season this year. Last year, he only played 65% of the snaps for the team, yet he still finished as a tight end 1. He was number 12 overall tight end last year. So going into his 3rd NFL season, and usually we see tight ends really start to blossom years 3 and 4. And the one thing I love about him is that his ability to play in the slot. Last year, he played 72% of his snaps in the slot. He saw about 52 of his 80 total targets there. And if and when, the Dolphins do decide to move into a, rookie quarterback, inexperienced, is probably going to be looking for that big body target to be a safety blanket. I think Gesicki will be that guy. The one thing that really does worry me about Gesicki this year, and it's actually something that Kyle had brought up in one of our podcasts last week or a couple of weeks ago, is Chan Gailey. Chan Gailey does not like utilizing his tight ends. I believe it was since 2000 when he'd been with 8 different teams. Only once did his tight ends rank higher than 28th in the league in utilizing the tight end position. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Gesicki this year. I really hope that, Chan Gailey takes more of a Bruce Arians approach when he starts talking about using more of that, 12 personnel, using the tight ends a little bit more. But as long as Gesicki gets that usage, he's absolutely in line for a top 10 tight end season.
I think something was wrong with this beer, which is why it exploded, because it's way hazier than the others too.
Yeah, so I will say this on the beer, I had to pour out and dump about 5 4-packs because they were exploded on our shelves.
Of the one I just drank?
Yeah, of the blueberry cream ale. I just think
something went wrong there, because I've had a 4-pack and this is the 3rd one I pulled off of it, and it's the first one that blew up on me. But I think they overcarbed or something. This one.
Dan, did you wait to share that information until just now and not maybe mention that beforehand?
No, I didn't know that he was bringing on this beer until
but you knew I had brought on this beer before I opened the second one, and you didn't mention it. It was the second one that blew up.
I didn't know you were bringing on a second one.
Well, I said you guys talk about Sam Darnold while I go get another beer.
I didn't know it would be that one. Either way,
okay, that's a fair point. It could have been anything.
It could have been any beer, but either way, it's probably because there was either, I don't know. Either way, let's just
poured
move
a
on.
little gray. It might have oxidized some. Either way, it's still good. Anyway, Mike Gesicki, better than an exploded beer. He's got the talent, I think, to absolutely take Mark Andrews type of step forward. It's just going to be utilization, how this offense is, how it meshes,
Wow.
and
Message?
I can't talk. Yeah. I'm still screwed up. I mean, I couldn't remember Sam Darnold's name earlier, Josh Arnold. So I think he could outperform that 12-12, that tight end 14 ADP. Again, he's another one that fits kind of in that, take a tight end with talent and hope it pays off. So
I want to pair him with any upside tight ends. Super athletic, entering his third year, showed out last year. The return of Preston Williams isn't going to hurt him because Preston Williams plays outside. We can fade coach talk, or we can talk about what previous seasons coaches have done with their tight ends. But when it comes to just taking a risk on one in the 12th round, I'm betting on the super athlete that showed out at least at some point last year. As long as he stays healthy, he's a tight end one. That's what we've seen from most of these tight ends anyways.
Absolutely.
They just got to stay healthy.
all right. Anything else on the Dolphins?
No, and I'm glad that's over.
Me too. All right. One last question. And this is designed to put you on the spot. This is
perfect
Chris,
time because Kyle just tuned in.
Because we love Jake and Kyle. We've had them both on at various in person and virtually, but we've had them both on in person at various conferences and meetups and stuff. They're two of our favorite people, but I gotta know, which one is more difficult to deal with, Chris, and why? Is it Jake or Kyle? Who is harder to put up with?
Is there an option for like a 1A, 1B? Do I have to pick just one?
I mean, you can throw them both under the bus. I'm fine with that too.
I mean, technically, Jake is the one who signs the checks. So no, I will say that Kyle and I have done a couple of YouTube videos together, and my biggest opportunity was that I wasn't not that I wasn't personable enough, but that I was a little bit uptight. I wasn't, I needed to loosen up a little bit. And so the first video Kyle and I did together, Jake asked if we could re-record it and make it a little bit funnier, so show more of our personalities, or my personality. And but Jake is definitely, he busts his butt more than anyone that I know, and he's very much a perfectionist. And it's one of the reasons why I love working for him. But as far as which one is tougher to work with, I'm going to say no, because they're both absolutely hilarious and they're very just kind of go with the flow people. But Jake's got the best hair. So
yeah. I will say this. Doing our live show with Kyle last year, I've never seen a man so happy to swear on a podcast. I think he dropped like 6 to 10 F-bombs in like 30 seconds. It was crazy. Fuck, I could swear now. I'm like, you can swear.
So funny and so much fun too. It was the point where we thought he was drinking with us and didn't realize that
I thought he was.
He was not, just because of how much fun that episode was. It was an absolute blast. I will say this though. One thing, and I'm gonna crap on Nick one more time because it's fun. When we did our first episode, our host was not. We had a third member at one point in time, and he hosted the shows a lot like I'm doing now. Was designed for keeping me and Dan in line and making sure we didn't go 3.5 hours. Obviously, he's missed because we don't have that ability now. There is no structure to anything. But the first episode, he was, and we all kind of were to a degree, but him more so than anything, was just super stiff and just, it was like a fresh air NPR radio episode. And Jake is absolutely right. The best thing you can do is just relax, have a conversation with whoever you're talking to. It's why we try to make these in that manner of where it's just conversation based and just let your personality come out and let it shine through. Nobody's judging you. Well, unless you're Kyle, everybody judges Kyle for whatever reason, but nobody else is. And you're gonna get, if you can throw passion behind it, you can throw humor behind it, you can have fun with it. It's gonna resonate that much more, and that's gonna keep people listening and keep people there. We don't have the biggest following, but we have a loyal following, and that is one of the things that is awesome to us. Is we see the same names week in and week out. We see the same people listening week in and week out, and they have bought into the brand that we put out there, which is consistent. We don't worry about being the biggest either. Just we don't worry about numbers or anything like that. It's just put out some entertaining content, and the best way you can do that, let your personality shine through and don't worry about it too much and don't try to be too perfect. The number of times I've screwed up on air is astronomical.
It's funny you say that because in the group chat that Jake, Kyle, Chris, and myself are in, we're always talking about what can we do to build the brand, this and that. And it doesn't matter if you have a blue check mark. It doesn't matter if you have tens of thousands of followers. It's all about making sure that you're providing the best content you possibly can to those that do follow you, because those are the ones that are going to stick around for years and years to come. And you just want to make sure that you're enjoying what you're doing, regardless of the actual numbers itself. It's just and it's the old saying, and it's cheesy as it sounds. You do what you love, and you're never going to work another day in your life.
Yep. And we've reinvented about 4 times over, just to keep it fresh and to prevent from burning out. We've changed the structure of this show multiple times over, and that's why. It's just to keep it fun and to keep it entertaining for the people that listen. So
absolutely.
Yep. He's right. Just let the personality shine through. Have fun.
And I will say this, Kyle is usually the one that has to rein in Jake. So, Jake can sometimes get off the rails. And when we do our bi-weekly podcasts, every now and then we think to ourselves, well, maybe we should actually just release the outtakes or the full video that's not edited. And then Kyle will have to kind of come in and say, you know what? We don't have a head of an HR department. We probably shouldn't just release it. So.
You're supposed to. We don't
worry about it.
We haven't edited an episode in like 2 years.
We used to edit. We don't know. We went to live streaming everything on YouTube for the interaction piece. And to give people the opportunity to show up, ask questions if they want to, and hang out. We went to live streaming everything. We record the audio at the exact same time. We do not edit anything. Doesn't matter if it's 3.5 hours. Doesn't matter if I blow up a beer in the middle of it. That'll be on the show. You're going to hear me saying, oh God, in the background as a beer on camera, I believe, is exploding in my hands. Because we don't edit anything out. Just because.
Yep.
You miss a lot.
Hear that over at the Fantasy Headliners? Fuck it. We'll do it live. Let's go.
Yes.
Fuck
it. We'll do it live.
Kyle said he talked about smuggling cocaine last week.
Smuggling cocaine last week and stroked my microphone. You stroked it?
Was it like
sexually?
No, it was pretty aggressive. Not as much awkward, but a little uncomfortable.
Stroked my microphone. Name of Kyle's sex tape.
Oh yes.
That's our show. Thank you
guys
for tuning into the AFC East episode. Chris, it has been a blast. We will get you on some other time here. Maybe bring all 3 on and see if we can't go 4 or 5 hours. We'll see how long that can go. But we appreciate.
We'll need more beer.
Yeah, we will need more beer.
We'll need a lot more beer.
But we appreciate you taking the time and showing up and hanging out. One more time, tell the people where they can find you, where they can find your stuff, where they can find the Fantasy Headliners if they don't know already.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again for having me on. I had an absolute blast. I'm looking forward to the next show. You guys can find me over on Twitter at Chris Kennedy 318, and you can find us over at thefantasyheadliners.com. If you want any of our exclusive content, we do offer it all on Patreon. We offer different tiers. We do have our draft guide ready for pre-order, ready to drop in just a few weeks now. So you can get that for a low price of $19.99 with over 600 virtual pages over at thefantasyheadliners.com.
Promo code beer.
Promo code
beer. Promo code beer. He actually just did the outro for me, which was awesome. because that's normally where I'd go with that and throw that out there one more time. So I appreciate that. That just made my life a lot easier. I am at Hot BFF with 2 P's. You can follow the show at BeerfieldFF on Twitter, Beerfield's Fantasy Football on YouTube. Like, subscribe. We record Tuesdays or Wednesdays or Thursdays, sometimes Mondays, maybe occasionally a Friday. Just depends. So the only way you're going to know is to like or subscribe. See when we pop up live on YouTube. Come hang out. Interact with us if you want to. Audio podcast drops on Wednesdays, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Stitcher, pretty much wherever podcasts are. Yeah, you can listen to us if you so choose. Thank you guys for tuning in. At 3BFF is my co-host, Dan. Any parting words?
When you like and subscribe to the YouTube episode, don't forget to hit that bell notification. It will let you know when we go live, so you can jump in, ask all the questions you need to ask, flame us, roast us, make fun of Kyle, because that's what people do. Other than that, that's it. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep, we have no idea who we're having on next week, but it'll be for the AFC South. Have a good one.
Yes. See ya.
And I have to find a drop.
Ooh.
I mean, it's there. I just wasn't ready for it.
You just have to hit it hard.